Cloudcast Media presents from the massive studios in Raleigh, North Carolina. This is the Cloudcast with Aaron Delp and Brian Gracely, bringing you the best of cloud computing from around the world.
Good morning, good evening, wherever you are, and welcome back to the Cloudcast. We are coming to you live from the massive Cloudcast studios here in Raleigh, North Carolina. Hope everybody's doing well. We're mid-month of February 2024, a little past Valentine's Day. Hope you had a chance to spend some time with loved ones and those you care about. But another Sunday Perspective show, and this Sunday Perspective is going to be a little bit different because usually it's sort of me solo, my perspective, or me putting together some thoughts from some stuff. But this one, I'm bringing in a friend, bringing in another perspective because for many of you that get a chance to get out to Las Vegas for tech events or conferences or things of that like, you probably noticed a new landmark on the Strip or just off the Strip, a thing called the Sphere, a big giant orb, which has tons and tons of LEDs on it, doing some very cool stuff in the entertainment space. And I was supposed to attend and visit the Sphere and get to take in that because I was out at a conference in Las Vegas. But for travel reasons, as I've mentioned, I've been traveling a ton lately. Got home a day early and had a chance to have a friend visit the Sphere. So we're going to do sort of a Sunday perspective on what it's like to take in the Sphere, to attend the Sphere, kind of understand what's going on in that thing. For those of you that get a chance to get out to Las Vegas. So we're going to dig into that right after the break. Is your cloud bill out of control? CloudZero is building a platform that will let you analyze your cloud investment faster than ever before. You'll get accurate, granular visibility into your total cloud spend without the typical pitfalls of legacy cloud cost management tools like endless tagging or clunky Kubernetes support. CloudZero is how cloud-driven companies gain more financial control and predictability by driving immediate and ongoing savings. You can answer questions like, how can I save 20% of my cloud bill right now? Who are my most expensive customers? How much does this specific feature cost our business? Join companies like Rapid7, Drift, and SeatGeek by visiting cloudzero.com/cloudcast to get started today. Again, please visit cloudzero.com/cloudcast to get started today. And we're back. And as I mentioned at the top of the show, we are sort of back to normal, I guess, to a certain extent in terms of something that a lot of us across the industry and our friends and so forth are doing, which is getting back to events. And one of the big event locations is Las Vegas, although whether we love it or hate it, Las Vegas is still one of the big things. And what I wanted to do was talk to someone who's had a chance to not only be out in Las Vegas quite a bit, but also attend and visit this new, sort of eighth wonder of the world, if you will, out in Las Vegas, the Sphere. So very, very excited to have a longtime friend of the show, longtime colleague of mine, both multiple stops. So Stu Miniman, Senior Director of Market Insights at Red Hat, and just longtime good friend of the show. Stu, welcome back, man. Good to have you on.
Brian, it's so good to be here. Every few years you stumble across a topic that you want to bring me on. So I'm thrilled to be back. And yeah, it's really interesting, the Sphere thing. Just what was it? $2.3 billion to build this thing. It's definitely very much built for today's soundbite and social media feeds because, I've been seeing clips of those U2 concerts everywhere I go. And I've watched it when they were building it and had the opportunity in Vegas recently to go inside. So psyched to talk about it.
Yeah. So you, before we jump into that, so you're a veteran in Las Vegas, by no means like a, degenerate gambler, but you've been out to Vegas probably what? I would guess probably 100 times, close to 100 times or something.
The really sad thing, Brian, is once I passed I think 30 times in Vegas, I just stopped counting because you're right. I've actually never been there for pleasure. I've been there 10 or 11 times for Amazon reInvent, a handful of times for VMware show, IBM shows. I don't remember how many IBM shows there. And of course, the EMC and Dell every year had their show there too. So as an employee, as an analyst, now at Red Hat, it was the first time I got to go to, the sales kickoff there. It was interesting. Brian, you're familiar with this. In my years as an analyst, it's in the contract that we have to trash talk Vegas and how much we hate it.
That's right.
But and always the best thing about Vegas is leaving.
Exactly.
Recovered from it because the artificial nature of it is there. It's it's even more crowded than usual when it's Super Bowl week. Yeah, I mean, there's always good food and there's things to check out. I remember I wrote a blog post years and years ago about going to the Super Nap, which was like, the geeky place to go check out some awesome data center, and people carried guns, and talking about the Sphere reminded me of that because it's the latest of those of us that are tech enthusiasts is like, yeah, I totally got to check this thing out.
Right. And for those of you that don't know, the Super Nap is, I think it's still called Switch, the company who owns it, but it's essentially what happened was when the dot-com bubble burst in 2000, 2001, and all these companies had been laying fiber optic cable all around the United States. It was, it was telcos, and it was cable companies, and it was railroad companies, and all sorts of people. There was a gigantic auction for pennies on the dollar to see who would buy all that, and SuperNap became the data center that was sort of the east or the west coast place where all of the fiber terminated. So it became this gigantic sort of super hub, if you will, for data centers and internet access points and so forth. So very cool place. If you ever get a chance to go, they do tours. It's kind of neat. It's out a little ways from Las Vegas if you do get out that way and you want to do some geeky stuff. So what did you know about the Sphere before going out there? So you mentioned that you'd seen some clips. U2 has been playing there as a resident for multiple months now. I know we've all been seeing some pictures of it online, social media clips of the outside of it showing up looking like different stuff. But what did you sort of know about the actual facility and all that before going out there?
So I didn't know a ton. Now, the part of the Strip that I'm most familiar with is, the Venetian Palazzo Sands Convention Center. That's the kind of the expo hall of reInvent, and way more times I've stayed there than I could think of. And the Sphere is actually right behind it. So in 2022, when I went to reInvent, I walked by twice a day where they were building the Sphere. And I'm like, God, this thing's massive and it's really cool. And then this last year in 2023, when I went to reInvent, it was all lit up. And every time you walk by, it's a giant sphere of a screen. So there's cool graphics on it. Sometimes it's advertisements, but you're grabbing photos and videos and sending them to friends and family and the like. So I didn't know a ton about it. Getting ready for this, even like having been inside, I'm like, wow, it actually will fit including the floor, 20,000 people in it. And it didn't feel like it was that big on the inside. But we'll talk about that more. But I hadn't done a ton of research on it or anything. It was just like, it's this huge investment. It's supposedly got like the best video and best audio ever made. And as we've talked about, U2 is the start, but they've got a few other concerts lined up. And when they're not doing the concerts, which only happen every once in a while, they are going to have other content. And as of right now, they just have one offering, which is a quote unquote movie. And I say that because it's only about 45 minutes long, and happy to talk about the movie itself, but they give you an opportunity to come in. You get about an hour to check out some things inside. And then you do the movie and you see the whole facility and everything. And it's an interesting experience. Right.
Yeah. It's, the Sphere is sort of the latest in the line of these mega, I'll call them stadiums that are popping up around the United States. I think they're also sort of popping up in Europe and in Asia, in places where there's sort of a mainstay, in most cases, sort of sports team. So like Los Angeles has one, SoFi, Dallas has one for the Dallas Cowboys. This one's in Los Angeles. It's sort of the new thing that is, probably multi-billion-dollar price tag. I think we'll start seeing this with, some of the top tier, football teams around Europe and Asia and so forth. But yeah, you're right. It's interesting because like, you don't really think about, well, I'm going to a concert or I'm going to this thing, I should research the actual stadium itself. Usually you just sort of get there and start experiencing it.
Yeah. And Brian, I'm glad you brought up stadiums because it was funny. Back doing theCUBE, I actually got to interview the architecture firm that built both the Cowboys and Kings Stadium, and the amount of tech that goes in there is amazing. But it's very different because, I'm a season ticket holder for the Patriots, and I hear about the concerts and events that they do. And of course, they want to maximize how many days a year they're having events there without wearing the place out. The Sphere is different because it's not going to be sports. And, it's not just an IMAX that's going to play, Oppenheimer and all the latest things that come out there. It's, it requires different tech. It's special built. And, we'll talk about this, but it's a little bit different. And it was funny, even the people that built this went to London and wanted to build another sphere, and the mayor of London shot them down because it is, it's this big thing. And it's, like there's the eyes everywhere. There's the one in London. There's the one in Las Vegas, and feels like, I don't know how many cities around the world you can see those, giant Ferris wheels there, but the Sphere people would like to have more of them. But since it is like a giant LED screen, it's a little bit different. And I think it requires a special type of city to embrace that.
Right.
And Las Vegas, of course, is known for, the neon.
Right. Yeah. There's a link I put in the show notes. There's probably a whole bunch of them, but I found there's a very, very good video. It's about 10 minutes long. I put a link in the show notes where somebody just sort of walks through what's going on in the Sphere in terms of not here's, the playlist from YouTube, but like, how big is it? How much seating is there? How does it compare to other things that you're used to seeing in terms of like large IMAX movie theaters? What's the outside made of? All that kind of stuff. So there's a good, kind of basic level technical overview of it that's worth taking a look at if you're going to go out and visit and you're just kind of interested in like, how do they make all this stuff happen? Give us, you had a chance to go out and you and I talked about going to the concert. The concert was sort of extraordinarily priced. I didn't get a chance to stick around, so you went. But kind of walk us through the basics of the Sphere. How did you get there? You mentioned it's near the Venetian and the Palazzo, so it's sort of on that end of the Strip if you're familiar with Las Vegas. But like, how do you get there? Is it mostly just walking? What's the entrance like? All that kind of stuff.
Great questions, because it is something that for the most part you're just going to walk up. If you happen to be at the Sands Convention Center, it can walk out the back. It's like walking a block away from there. Funny thing, of course, while we were there was some convention going on, so you couldn't walk through the Sands, so you had to walk all the way around the Venetian to be able to get to it. There's a parking lot. A parking garage right there where they can do drop off and pick up for the Sphere. But, if you've got, 5, 10, 15, 20,000 people going into this thing, that parking garage looks slammed. So, I actually happened to be in that area of the Strip. We just walked in, and when we left, rather than trying to grab an Uber or a taxi there, because there was way too many people, we walked a couple of blocks and we're by like Caesar's Forum, which is a much easier place to grab a rideshare if we had to go back, further up the Strip. So logistically, it's not awesome. There's a monorail that goes near there, but it didn't look like there was an easy way to get there, at least at the time of day that I was there. So I wish the logistics were a little bit simpler. I'm sure you can get dropped off kind of easy if you're a different part of Las Vegas and want to get there easier, but most of Las Vegas is pretty walkable. So it wasn't obscene. What's kind of interesting is the way they've got this movie, and it's Darren Aronofsky, I believe, is the director of it. He did Black Swan and a bunch of other movies. The way they explain the experience is the first hour you get to experience the Sphere. And what that means is you walk in and they've got a bunch of AI and robotic like kind of demo stations set up. So one of them, like in the center, had a humanoid robot like talking to you, and they're like, we're going to show you this experiment of sound, and it uses like some kind of quantum something or other. And if you stand in one of these 4 areas, you will hear the exact same audio broadcast in 4 different languages. And it was, English, Arabic, Spanish, and I'm forgetting probably French for the 4th.
Yeah.
It was actually Mandarin was the 4th. And it worked pretty well. And we're all standing there and we take a little video and send it there. And they've got showing off innovation, showing off robots, showing off AI. The lobby has this huge ceiling, and there's a bunch of visual sights to see. So everybody's taking pictures and selfies inside. And of course, they have very expensive drinks and food to be able to grab if you want to do it. And then you make your way to your seats. And you watch a 45-minute movie. Okay. So the movie itself, I'd call it like a super IMAX. It was probably the most gorgeous, like cinematic, like nature scenes that I've ever seen recorded on a screen. It's, like remember when we got high def television and you'd see like the nature shows. It's that kind of like, wow, on this like humongous screen with amazing audio. And even for this movie, they have built in like the subwoofers in the seats. So when, the elephants are walking on screen, your seats are actually vibrating and you can feel it. So it's impressive. The disclaimer I'll give on the movie is cinematically, it's great. The plot's a little light for a 45-minute movie. It's not some big action adventure. And the message is a little bit heavy-handed as to what we have done to our beautiful planet. So I'll leave it there. And, if you go read online, I'm sure you can read much more about it. But beautifully shot and impressive to see. And yeah, it's the disclaimer also, it's Vegas. So the movie itself, I think the cheapest tickets are about $100. And my recommendation from everything I read is the 300s and 400s are the best place to see the movie, because you can see all of the screen itself really well. I was sitting in the 400s, which are, some of the least expensive seats, and it was great seats. I talked to, a friend that went to see the U2 show, and they said, again, like the lower levels, you could see, U2 much better, but you might not have the best view of the full screen. But even if you're in the 3 and the 400s and you're like, okay, Bono and the Edge and everybody are kind of small, most of the time on the screen, they have a giant projection of the band. So while everybody posts photos of some of the beautiful scenes and kind of videos that they have, they do what they do at most concerts, which is, make the band actually visible, even if you're in the back row.
Yeah. I want to talk a little bit about some of the visuals around it. So when you walk in, so a lot of us have seen, like on the outside, they'll show something, right? Maybe it's the big emoji, maybe it's some sort of logo, like you said, an ad or something. When you're inside the place but not in the seating, can you see stuff sort of on the? Can you get a sense of like what's being projected to the outside, or is that entirely to the out? Like, is it sort of translucent to the outside, or
no? You actually, it's a completely separate experience. So no, there's plenty of LEDs going in. They've even got in that main lobby. It's not quite holographic, but some of the cool things that I'd seen in videos from the U2 show were up above you, and you can see there. But what happens on the outside is on the outside. The inside is kind of self-contained and nothing in between. Because it's funny, like it's one of the things that's cool on the Sphere on the outside. Sometimes it looks like it's transparent, and they're just doing that with the LED screen. So they do the same thing. I think for some of the content there is, they could make it look like it's the sky, but it's no different than just going to like a planetarium and being like, oh, look up.
Yeah. Okay. And then once you get into the sort of stadium part of it, where the seating part is, it's essentially down below. So if you actually go there and you see it at street level, part of the Sphere, is down below ground level. So most of the stadium's kind of down below a little bit. It feels, it looks, from what I've seen, it looks like it's about half of the Sphere is where the seating is. It's not sort of this big, round open oval like a regular football or soccer stadium. And then as you sit, it's kind of this tiered seating, right? Like there's kind of a floor level and then a couple of tiers. How much are you, once you actually get in your seat, are you tilted back and you're kind of looking up at the ceiling? Are you sort of looking down on everything? What's the actual seating feel like? And does it move at all? Or is it just kind of fixed seating?
Yeah, no, it is all fixed seating. I would be worried if there were 18,000 seats moving around, even though there's certain pieces when they have the camera flying, it almost feels like if you've been on Soarin' at, Disneyland, Disney World, you almost feel like that because the screen is so big and it's so impressive and the like. For the most part, it's like a regular seat in any stadium. You're facing straight ahead. If you needed to look all the way down, it's tiered enough that you can do that. I'd heard some things that people were a little bit worried about how steep it was at the upper decks. At least from my experience, I was in the 400s, and I've been to, the Garden in Boston or the upper deck of Gillette Stadium where the Patriots play are a steeper set of stairs than it was at the Sphere, because, if you just think about how the thing's shaped, it's not, you're not going straight up. You want to be a little bit nicer on the climb up or climb down.
Right.
But yeah, it fixed seats. And as you said, it's really only kind of half of the stadium, much more like a typical, music theater or concert hall type of seating, just bigger and up higher, not like any kind of sports arena.
Right. And I have to imagine the sound is probably an interesting science experiment, because it's obviously it's enclosed, but it's enclosed with completely rounded walls, and I'm not sure what the material is on the inside. I'm sure it's all the same LEDs. So there's probably all sorts of interesting kind of sound wave bouncing characteristics that they had to figure out throughout. I mean, was the sound pretty robust, or was there anything interesting about it?
Brian? The sound was amazing. I mean, the thing has, according to the website, they have 167,000 speaker drivers there. So it's concert grade audio, and there's something about the way they do it. It's like, oh, we target every seat. So like, I remember I've talked to people that put in Wi-Fi in the sports stadiums, and they have the access points, tuned to get the entire stadium covered. And if they had any issue, you could actually be like, hey, I'm in this section in this seat, and they could adjust this. But it was really crystal clear. There was nothing, compared to some movie theaters. I feel like movies lately have been like really kind of heavy bass, and you lose certain some of the dialogue amongst some of the background noise. And this was beautiful audio. I call it like a super IMAX view. And the sound system was really amazing. So, I mean, you put a couple $1 billion in, and you sweat the details, right?
Yeah. No, it's the feedback I've heard has been really, really good. The other thing I'm really curious about, and obviously this is probably all speculation unless you've heard something, the few pictures I've seen of the U2 concerts, so what right now with the way they seem to be doing it is, they're treating it not really as like a stadium venue like football stadiums do, where some band might come on a Thursday and somebody else comes on a Friday, and they're trending to do the Las Vegas thing, which is somebody has a residency for a long period of time. So Fish was there for a little while, U2 has been there for multiple months, Dead and Company is sort of the next one in line. I did notice, though, that the stage seems to be fairly, relatively fairly small and fairly fixed. Did you get any sense of like, are they going to, if, for example, Taylor Swift or somebody who does a big stage with a lot of production, is there room to move stuff around? Or do you get the sense it's sort of like, well, they can adjust it, but it's sort of where it is and the size it is?
Yeah, you're right. The stage does look kind of small, and it does look kind of fixed. And if you think about, U2, they can make this nice production for them. Fish and Dead and Company, obviously have a certain kind of aesthetic that you will go to on the screens for that kind of thing. So it kind of lines up. I don't know that just somebody like a Taylor Swift would be the right fit for it. And anyway, you can't fit enough people in there for her audiences these days. So it's going to be interesting to see, because there's certain general purpose nature that you would want in such a facility, but you want to take advantage of the special nature of what they can do with the audio and video there. So I'm definitely interested. I sure, would consider, I was talking with friends, and, Dead and Company's not my jam, but, I haven't seen Pink Floyd in a number of years. If they were able to do it, I would totally think about trying to get tickets and go back to Vegas for it. So.
Right. Yeah. It seems like it has the potential to do some interesting things. I mean, I can imagine, if you wanted to watch like a sporting event, it would be kind of an interesting thing if they could figure out, how to use the whole thing for projection of some sort. I could imagine, that like certain movies would probably be really interesting in there. But yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how they sort of dole out the space, because obviously you can't wear out a band 7 nights a week. They sort of need breaks for various reasons. So it's going to be interesting to see how they maintain it, because I've heard, at least initially, some various things about how profitable it is, how expensive it is to run, and what sort of stuff they do to kind of, like you said, try and use it as many days as possible without completely wearing it out. Any tips or tricks for, now that you're a one-time veteran, but I've heard, like you said, the way it's tiered, you don't necessarily want to sit at the bottom because maybe you can't.
So a couple of things because when I did read about it, first of all, like if you're going to see a concert, oftentimes you're like, I want to be at the 100 level, and that'll be great. The back half of the 100s has the tiers above you, so you actually can't see a lot of what's on the screen. So that is not ideal. It'd be perfectly fine if you have like a corporate event there and you want to see it, but not for the concert, because taking advantage of the screen is a big piece of what you would want to see there. The other thing is, yes, tickets are expensive, but looks like there is like a resale market. So, we talked about U2, just to put some numbers out there, it was typically like $600 to $900 for most of the seats. I heard on the day of somebody that got a ticket for more like $350, because sometimes people buy tickets and they can't go, and they'll want to put it up there, right, or they're just available. So there is that opportunity to last minute make a purchase from that standpoint. And yeah, it's I always love for these type of things. If you've got like the view from my seat type of thing. So, lots of venues when I go to, I try to look that up to be like, hey, it's very different if you're going to see a comedian than if you're going to see something visual like this, where you want to be a little bit more centered
right.
On this kind of activity. So, and there's always good resources online if you go start, reading, review sites.
Right. Yeah. It'll be interesting to see what they do. It'll be interesting to see how like the camera technology evolves in terms of, I don't know, I'm just sort of thinking out loud, like, Las Vegas is famous for, various types of fights and so forth. That would be interesting if some sort of live event that's not music, where you're just using sort of fixed backgrounds or, movie backgrounds, you're using sort of live. Does that work with the LEDs? It'll be interesting to see how the camera technology evolves, and how much we expect that in our homes at some point.
Yeah, well, right. We always talk about so many things. It's like, do I go to the movie, or is my large screen TV enough?
Right.
And do I need 4K? And just, Brian, I look at it. It's a 16K by 16K picture resolution. So again, it's amazing. And you do notice like the detail. It's like, wow, it's pretty impressive.
Well, very cool, man. Well, I'm gonna kind of wrap it up there. Like we mentioned, it's if you're going to Vegas, Vegas is always going to be somewhat expensive. So if you're hearing $500 or $300 or whatever, everything in Las Vegas is a little bit relative. You can always throw a few bucks on a few hands of blackjack, and all of a sudden your tickets might be paid for. But it's like you said, it's a pretty unique experience that, as of right now, you're not going to get anywhere else in the world. So it might be worth your time if you're out there for 3 or 4 days. Any last thoughts before we wrap up, or just kind of last thoughts about the first experience?
Yeah, I hopefully they will have some other experiences, because I enjoyed that one. I wouldn't go see that movie a second time, but it was fun to check out, and hoping they expand on it. And yeah, unfortunately, everything in Vegas is expensive. It was a lot cheaper to go do that than probably play some games at the table, and absolutely was not going to be able to afford a Super Bowl ticket this year myself. So I was happy to check it out. It was definitely it was fun, and good to chat with you about it, Brian.
Yeah, good deal. Well, listen, everybody. As we mentioned at the top of the show, some of you are getting out to Vegas for fun. Whatever it's a bachelor party or a sporting event or whatever. But a lot of you, it does at least pop up somewhere on your radar for potential conferences. Probably not the CNCF, but a lot of the other vendor sponsored conferences, analyst sponsored conferences, and other things. So we wanted to give you a little bit of preview now that at least part of our community has got out and had a chance to see it. So hopefully this was useful. We put some stuff in the show notes so you can take a look at the trailer for the movie. You can dig into what's in the stadium and so forth. So with that, we'll wrap it up. Thank you to Stu for the time. Great to have you back. I think you and I do more unofficial Cloudcasts when we get together and talk, but it's good to have you back on the show, man. So with that, folks, we'll wrap it up. Thank you all for listening. Thanks for telling a friend. Thanks for helping us grow the community. And with that, we'll wrap it up. We'll talk to you next week.
Thank you for listening to The Cloudcast. Please visit thecloudcast.net to find more shows, show notes, videos, and everything social media.